Do Canadians lack creativity? If you're not born in Canada, but you're now doing business here, this is the place for you. Click here the subscribe button, set up the alert, and if you like this video, let us know by clicking the like button. So this is an interesting topic because it comes up a lot, especially when the immigrant business person doing business in Canada was born and raised in an emerging country. I'm one of these people. I was born and raised in what's considered an emerging country. Let me tell you a little bit about back home, because if you're an immigrant doing business in Canada, there may be characteristics that are similar about the place that you came from as well. So here's the thing, back home, there is usually a lot of room for resourcefulness and creativity, meaning that sometimes the rules are not very clear, or the rules sometimes don't make sense. If you try to follow the rules, you won't be able to get something done. You have to find ways around. And sometimes the rules just change a lot. And something that was the rule today is not the same as what's going to be the rule 2 years from now. So that creates kind of this relatively unstable or volatile or flexible environment. Let me use this word flexible a little bit. Because what ends up happening is you don't know that the environment and the rules and regulations and the expectations and everything is going to be exactly the way things are written down. Let me give you an example. You may want to know what's the process to obtain a certain license. And let's say in Canada, what do? You go to the government website and you see what's written there. And okay, that's how it goes. And if you try to go in person to the place, maybe they will just refer you back to the website, or they're going to give you exactly the same information. Back home, it may be different, right? The information sometimes you obtain from some source is obsolete. You actually have to talk to somebody else to actually know how things work. Oh, yeah, it's written there in the website, but this changed and we didn't have time to update. It's something that happens quite often in many countries, right? And because of all that, if you're a business person operating in an environment where the rules can change and you don't know if you're looking at the latest version and whatnot, so people tend not to have a very structured and regimented approach to almost anything. It's more about talking to people and navigating and adapting as you go, right? So there is a degree of improvisation that is very necessary, because if you don't improvise, if you're too rigid, you just are not able to do anything, right? So it's not about things being right or wrong in one place versus the other, but it's about how things are different, and that will demand from you a different way to go about business. What works in one environment doesn't work in the other. It doesn't mean one is better or worse than the other. So do Canadians lack creativity? That's a question I have. And why people ask this type of questions when they're trying to do business in Canada? Because they feel sometimes they run into a wall. They say, well, I'm telling my potential client that, they already agree that everything is completely wonderful here, but now they want this bureaucracy, this paperwork, this and that. And come on, let's be a little creative. Let's go around this while I work on that. And they want me to do that first, and everything stopped until that ridiculous thing. But that takes time, right? Well, why don't we work in parallel with this other thing? I find that there is a lot of these eagerness to kind of be flexible and move around things and adapt and create exceptions. And what I find is that in Canada, there's very little appetite to create exceptions and to deviate from a previously proven path. And then people say, well, come on, though, so they never learn. Everything is just done the same way it's done in the past. And come on, that's not realistic. It does change. Things do change. But the way Canadians tend to favor change is, instead of dealing with it at the moment, one of a kind change, they tend to start to gather that evidence that, okay, maybe this process doesn't work because look at this, look at that. And it's very frustrating because in the meantime, there's a lot of stuff that could have happened in a different way that doesn't happen, that just gets stalled because the well-established process doesn't address that properly. But then what's done usually is that there is a massive change where all those things are incorporated. So there's almost like a dam effect where the water level goes rising until it bursts, and then everything is changed at once with a planning and an execution. So it's very interesting to see what happens, because where we have this perception, people that are from emerging countries originally, they look at Canada and they think, well, it's very bureaucratic, it's very structured, and why do that? Because then you miss out opportunities. Well, again, asking ourselves why we that were born and raised from emerging countries understand the value of flexibility is because that's the way we have to be to get things done back home, right? And in Canada, in the other way, if you try to be too flexible, if you try to apply for too many exceptions and something, it plays against your credibility. It's better to play by the rules and mold yourself to whatever it is that needs to be done in that moment. And if you have objections, if things have to change, by all means, go and try to build that evidence, but not expecting that you're going to be granted an exception on the spot. I think that's the big difference, right? People from emerging markets have the impression that in Canada, sometimes Canadians are just giving the same answers. Okay, this is my situation. And they give you an answer and say, but listen, but let me explain you better. Like, actually, in my specific case, there's this exception. They're like, yeah, I understand that, but we're not going to open an exception. And that can get very frustrating. Or it may create the impression that Canadians are just pushing paper around. This is especially true when we hire advisors. Let's say if we hire a lawyer or an accountant, and we want to do something a certain way, and the lawyer or the accountant keep giving us, or the bank, keep giving us the same answer, say, no, but I understand what you're saying, but it has to be like this. And say, no, you're not making an effort to be creative and give me a different answer, a different solution. People are not wired to be looking for exceptions because implicitly they know that's going to play against your credibility, right? Or sometimes not even going to be possible, or it's going to raise red flags and somebody's going to turn down a request or something like this, right? So it's very important to adapt the way we conduct business to be aligned with the environment where we are, right? If we behave as the way things were here in this other environment, it's not going to work in our favor. Same thing. If I go to my home country and I start to apply a very rigid, very regimented, very structured approach, people are going to say, wow, this guy doesn't have any flexibility. I mean, they don't know how to adapt, and they're not a reliable partner because things change. How can he expect things to be always like this, 100% by the book all the time? That's unrealistic. And then I won't be able to do business there. You have to understand the culture of the place where you're doing business. And there are reasons for that, and we can't judge. We can't be, oh, hey, this is wrong, this is right. It's like, yeah, if you want to do business in a place, you have to understand how it is, and you have to behave that way. This way, you build trust. Remember, people like to do business with people that they trust. And trust sometimes comes from familiarity. Oh, yeah, he gets me. Oh, I get them. I understand. We are on the same wavelength. We're on the same page. Therefore, I can trust them. If you sound too much like an outsider, no matter from where to where you're going, people are not going to have that degree of trust because they say, well, they don't get it. And like if everything I'm saying here looks a little bit complicated and whatnot, okay, but how do we implement this in practice? That may be the question. Okay, I understand philosophically what you're telling me, but what about my day-to-day here? That's why we have our platform here called Your Business in Canada, where we are by your side and you are part of a group of other immigrant entrepreneurs like you building their success in Canada. And we are here by your side to guide you in the process. Well, what about practical steps? Let's remember, Canadians believe in the system, whatever is the system. Oh yeah, no, that's how it works. Canadians like that. It's not like, well, forget about what's written here. Let's figure out a way and let's talk to people. That's the reality in emerging countries. In Canada, they believe the system. They believe in improving or fixing things. They believe that. But first, they believe that what is established is what has to be followed first. If that has to be fixed, there's going to be a whole process to fix. It's not like by opening exceptions. So that's the difference, right? Back home, people don't believe in the system. And therefore, everything is on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, let's try this, but in this case, that, right? It's like right here in Canada, there's almost like a blind faith. Oh, no, the system is the system, that therefore it believes it works. So if I want something different, so maybe the system is not right. It takes a while to come to that realization, but then you adapt and you change the system itself. So Canadians tend to prefer to change the system instead of doing ad hoc band-aids for the sake of expediency and doing things quickly. So yes, are Canadians creative? Yes, Canadians are creative, but they're creative in a different way. They're creative in ways, okay, how can we fix the system here, right? Like, how can we actually change things in a way that it will work in general, right? They don't like to work with workaround solutions to find like a patches, band-aids. They like structured workflows. They like to allocate resources efficiently, people and resources, right? And they like that the plan is followed. They like to make plans and that the plan is executed. That's what drives trust and makes people want to do more business with you. So we have to understand that when we're doing business in Canada, if we are immigrant entrepreneurs, that in order to do business in Canada, we have to come across as somebody that respects the system, that likes to improve things, but will stick to the norms and not be trying to get exceptions all the time, that we will respect the structure of the workflows, that we're not going to be trying to do workaround solutions all the time, that we're going to be wanting to respect the allocation of people and resources, that we respect what was the planned execution, not trying to, oh no, yeah, but now that doesn't work, let's change. Well, but we just started to implement, how can we change? So these are the things that are almost invisible when we're trying to do business in a different culture that hurt our ability to grow our business faster or further, and that hurt our relationship with all the stakeholders, right? Our relationship with our service providers get harder, the lawyer, the banker, the accountant, even our relationship with our employees. I've heard so many times from foreign-born business people in Canada, they say, yeah, you hire Canadians, they just don't work the same way. That's why I like to hire people from my culture. It tells you a lot about the belief of the person, of the business owner, when they say that. Oh, the Canadians don't work that hard. No, it just don't understand how Canadians work better for you. You cannot change the environment where you are, right? I mean, you could, because Canada has so many immigrants that you can own a business that only caters to your cultural community, for sure. And you can get quite large in that. But if you really want to break through into mainstream and grow in Canada, then you have to understand these nuances and break out of the cultural bubble from your original culture here in Canada. Anyways, if this is helpful, there are 2 more videos here that you may like as well.